best friend about this, and I kept telling him, I said, but what if nobody shows up? Because now I record my podcast whenever I want to, but back then I did the episodes live. And so it was very nerve-wracking for me because we're like, it's going to be a live experience. And I'm like, what if the live experience is just Jamelle talking and nobody shows up? And so when we went live and I saw how many people were on and they were commenting because we had a chat room and people were like, we're excited and this is awesome. And I was just shocked that people showed up. So I think the fact that people showed up kind of put me a little bit more at ease, but I was still so uncomfortable with it. So it's like, okay, I did that. I don't know if I'm going to do any more. And I think a lot of that goes back to it was such a new space for me, and I was not sure how to navigate it. Now, shout out to my good friend, Mr. Robert Wesley Branch, which is probably one of the only reasons that this podcast has been around for 12 years. At the time, I was a regular on his podcast, and they were bringing me on. I was doing segments and talking about empowerment as I've always done. And, he was one of those people that kind of encouraged me to do this as well. But what I was getting ready to say, I didn't really know how to navigate this space. I knew how to be a guest on shows. I had done media and press circuits, so I know how to do interviews. But it was different taking the helm of a show. And a lot of people were like, well, Jamelle, you're such a great communicator. And I am a communicator, but what people don't understand, when you are hosting a show, hosting a podcast, hosting a platform, it takes a different skill set than just being a good communicator. Like, you are the captain of the ship. You're navigating it. You got to get this to the destination. And it's different. When I'm being interviewed, I just do what I do. I can talk and share wisdom and insights, and I can throw it back to the host, but it's like everything is riding on you. So I think there was just so many different factors that were at play at that time, and I just didn't know how it was going to come out. And so after the premiere, I heard from so many people telling me that they enjoyed it and how they were so impacted by it. And so I found myself in a dilemma. It's like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, but now all these people are excited and they're like, we enjoyed it. We can't wait for the next episode. And I think the thing that really struck me the most once the podcast premiered was the fact that people were like, this is so refreshing. And that's what people kept saying. We've never seen a platform like this, and we need this. People need this. And I think from there it began to dawn on me that maybe this is something that I should be doing. And so from there, I started to dial in on the topics that I wanted to cover, and people responded positively to the show. And so I think I was just really shocked at how positively people responded, because first of all, I didn't know if they were going to respond at all. And I was telling everybody from my assistant that helps me with JSI to friends and family. I was telling everybody I just need somebody to be on so that I'm not just on there talking to myself and claiming that this is a live show. And when I saw the overwhelming response from people, and a lot of people are like, finally, Jamelle, this is your zone of genius. This is what you should be doing. And this is going to impact people's lives. And it just reassured me that I was on the right course and I was doing what I needed to be doing. And as people became more hungry, I expanded to 2 shows and was now podcasting twice a week. So, I was enjoying what I was doing, because these days I do good to get 1 podcast in a week. And I can't even commit to that every single week all the time because of just how scheduling things and conflicts occur now. But I was doing 2 shows, and I really enjoyed I did a show on Wednesdays that was kind of around the soul, and it was some of my favorite conversations, because this show I kind of highlight some high-level concepts sometimes, but on that show we went deep. We went deep into the psychology, the emotional part of us, the volitional part of us. It was really good. So it was great, and to see that people were tuning in to both of them was like, okay, so maybe we're on to something here. People are enjoying this. I could not believe that people were resonating with the message, and more people were being exposed to my work. So it was great. But I hit a point where I had become really discouraged with the podcast, and I wondered if it was valuable and if it was something that I wanted to continue doing. And so I spoke with a dear friend, and that friend told me that I should keep going and that my voice was needed and that the message I was sharing was really important. But even in the midst of all of that, I decided to step away from the podcast. I was at a very low point in my life, and I was just tired. And I was assessing so much, from business to my personal life to my relationships to everything. And I was in a season where I was just cutting a lot of stuff out because it's like, is this really helpful? Is this beneficial? Are people getting anything out of this? Or am I just doing this out of habit because you've been doing it for years now? And so I was sure at that time that I was done with podcasting, and I had no intention on returning. I told everybody I was done. I told them, and at that time I had done quite a bit of episodes. So I was like, I have all the archives. You can go back and listen. You can go back and download and retrieve all of the great wisdom and lessons I've shared over the years, and thank you for your support. And I really did. I thought I was finished with it. I was done with it. However, I kept sensing in my spirit that I needed to get back to it. And for a while, I kind of ignored it. I was like, no, Jamelle, you're just being emotional because you have an attachment to it. You've done it for so long. It bears your name. It's impacted people's lives. You're having a hard time breaking up with it, so to speak. But it kept getting louder and louder. And so finally, the same friend that kept asking me when I was coming back said that my voice was needed and that it was missed in this space. And so after more prayer and reflection, I made the decision to return to the podcasting space. And as the announcement was made, people celebrated my return, and something incredible happened, let me tell you. The podcast started to expand and reach new markets around the world. Before I took a pause from podcasting, we were reaching around the world. It was some incredible numbers. Europe and so many different places were tuning in. But when we relaunched the podcast, it's like it went through the roof. And I was trying to figure out what caused the growth at such a level. But as we look through the data, and every episode we're looking through data and analytics, we're studying who's tuning in, who's dropping off, all of that different thing. It just helps us for planning and the future purposes of the platform. But it started to grow, and I feel as if the podcast evolved with me, and I guess the result of it was just excellence at a different level. And people are like, it was good before, but wow, they're like, you've grown, Jamelle, and what you're sharing with us has grown to an even greater level, and they're getting so much value out of it. And so honestly, I was never intended to do the podcast for a long time. I don't know if you know that. I think some people have always assumed that I was going to do this podcast for a very long time and for many, many years. And in all actuality, I told myself maybe 6 months to a year I would do it, and that would be it. But here we are. Today marks 12 years of podcasting. And now I have no intention of slowing down because I get feedback in real time. There are people that constantly reach out to me. They say, this is exactly what I needed. Every time I listen to your podcast, I learn something new. You help me to grow as an individual. You inspire me to reach for more in my life. And it is just so amazing that this podcast has had the impact that it has